Grain Elevator and Processing Society is hosting their annual GEAPS Exchange Conference at the Kansas City Convention Center, February 22nd through the 25th of 2025. GEAPS Exchange is the biggest and best show in the grain industry with more than 400 exhibitors and 45 hours of education. It is the best place to find grain handling and processing operation solutions all in one place. GEAPS Exchange brings together industry professionals from across the world to help build professional networks and connect with the products you need. Come walk the trade show floor, take part in live demonstrations, innovation stations, and see new equipment. Make valuable connections through a variety of fun and exciting social events. Early bird pricing ends January 28th. Learn more and register at jeeps.com/exchange. Coming up is a very interesting and memorable conversation I had with a regional safety manager. Wait till you find out what singular event caused a change in trajectory in his career path. It's a story you don't want to miss. Today, he is completely immersed in the safety of his colleagues in the workplace. We'll discuss how he is implementing what he refers to as a new vision for safety in his organization. I know it's a growing conversation by GEAPS members who are safety leaders for their organization. You may have heard others call it Safety 2.0. If you're looking for tips on how to begin changing the culture of safety in your organization, this show is for you. Hey folks, welcome back. Welcome to Whole Grain. My name is Jim Lenz, your host and Director of Training and Education at GEAPS, where the mission of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society is about people, information, and knowledge, and the mission of the industry is about feeding the world. Thanks for listening today and for joining the network of thousands of other grain handling and processing professionals across the globe, taking strategic steps to grow professionally. The Whole Grain Show will give you the competitive advantage to win at work so you can make more of an impact. In today's show, we have an inspirational and important safety message to discuss. It's not only taking place in the ag industry, but so many other industries as well. Our special guest for today is Casey Abel. Casey is out of Texas. He's a regional safety manager at Gavilon Group. Casey joined GEAPS in 2019 and was elected in 2021 as a GEAPS International Board Director. He's part of an emerging group of safety professionals rethinking how they look at safety. You'll develop an understanding what this new vision is about. How do you begin implementing this with your organization? We'll examine what this might look like from an organizational perspective in terms of implementation, and just as important, what does execution look like daily in terms of conversations with individual colleagues? You know, as I reflect back on this conversation with Casey, I think his philosophy in simple terms is he wants everyone in his organization to feel and act as safety leaders. Everyone has a voice and are there to support the good of the organization. But most importantly, he wants his colleagues, he wants his work family to be able to attend their daughter's soccer game at night or their son's Little League game or play basketball in the driveway. I think that's what this episode is about. We're talking transforming safety culture next. Let's get started. All right, today we have Casey Abel, safety manager at the Gavilon Grain in Texas. He is also one of our esteemed directors of the GEAPS International Board. It's great to connect with you, Casey. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. Excited about it and excited what you're doing with the podcast here at GEAPS. I think they're going to be great.
Thank you so much. Now, to allow our listeners to get to know you a bit and add some perspective, Casey, could you please share with our listeners a professional mantra or success quote that you live by?
Yeah, so I'm a big quote guy, so I like a lot of quotes. But if you can't tell the sign here over my right shoulder, I grew up a big Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. I wasn't smart enough to go there. I'm a Mizzou grad, but I grew up a big Notre Dame fan, Catholic in the Midwest, right? Had to be my team. But also a big Lou Holtz fan. I love Coach Holtz. I love some of his mottos and sayings. So the one I really like, it's simple, to the point, and I like to paste it everywhere on my Post-it notes. But it's do right, do your best, to treat others as you want to be treated. So I think that's, just kind of sums it all up, right? Work hard and treat others the way you want to be treated is the golden rule, right? So
Absolutely.
That would be my go-to quote if I had to pick one.
That's great. Yeah, everybody can connect with that for sure. That's a good one. Now, I would imagine we have listeners who are learning about GEAPS, the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, for the first time through this podcast. What would you like them to know about the GEAPS organization?
The GEAPS organization, if you're in the grain and feed industry, I think GEAPS is by far the biggest, not-for-profit supporter of our industry, by far the greatest resource we have, outside of our own organizations. And, to me, I always have to tell the story how I kind of got involved with GEAPS. I actually was a senior at the University of Missouri, and I had one grain class, right? And I knew nothing about the grain industry and had no interest in getting involved in the grain industry at all. And I had a professor take me to the GEAPS exchange. I believe it was 2010 in Wichita. And, he took us on a day trip, and it's just, if anybody that's been to a GEAPS exchange, it's pretty mind blowing the first time you go, just the amount of, equipment, innovation. And, it was really that day that really, drove me to get involved in this industry. I remember leaving that day going, wow, this is really cool. This is really cool stuff. It's, a lot of great people. So here we are 11 years later. But, that is GEAPS, right? I think one of the biggest drivers for GEAPS too is it does promote our industry as well. Amongst the college graduates or even high school students, continuing to bring young people into our industry. But once we're here, right, the networking GEAPS provides is certainly one of the biggest benefits. The innovation, right? You have exposure to the industry's best leaders, the industry's best equipment, or technology innovation. On the safety side, that's key, because we are continuing to innovate in the safety field in this industry, around, confined space entries, or we're certainly facing high risk hazards every day. And that exposure to that innovation through GEAPS is incredible. And just, the networking, like I said, the sharing of ideas and, hey, what's your organization doing? That's one of the coolest parts about safety is I can call my biggest competitor today, the safety manager, and say, hey, we're having some trouble here. And, what do you guys do to keep people safe, under rail fall protection or whatever it may be? And we can share that, because we may be competitors, but we all want all our employees in our industry going home the way they showed up every day. So GEAPS has played a huge role in that in the industry on the safety side.
That is a great response. And I think people appreciate what you're saying, and also find out more about GEAPS if they haven't heard that before. So number one, it was the exchange that really turned you on to what GEAPS is all about, and just the industry as a whole, the networking, the connections. We have a lot of episodes coming up on innovation and also attracting new individuals who, have this great opportunity to explore an amazing career ahead. And so looking forward to those conversations here through the podcast and through different means through our GEAPS.com website. So, and that is so neat that your professor decided, hey, we're going to take students here. And just imagine though, in your life, if your professor did not make that decision. I mean, it's just, of course,
who knows?
Who knows? It's just fantastic.
But kind of a cool ending to that story too is, this year at the GEAPS Exchange in 2021, it's 2022. So 11 years after I graduated, I walked around with that same professor at the GEAPS Exchange this year, and he had 4 or 5 students there with him. So full circle for me there.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Big smile on your faces, I bet. I bet he's so proud of you. Very neat. All right. Now, listeners also may be curious. Could you share some information about your role with GEAPS and the work of the International Board?
Yeah. So I've been a part of the International Board for a little over a year now. I'm a director representing a regular member. So, we have associate members, regular members within GEAPS. Regular members would be people that actually work in the industry or for the industry, grain elevators, whatever it may be. And then the associates are more on the sales side. So board's made up of both. I think we're at, 18. I could be getting that wrong, but it's been a really cool experience being exposed to, how the organization operates, strategic planning, and really, the board's job is just to represent the members. And I think we do a really good job of that, of really brainstorming and saying, hey, what do the members want? How can GEAPS be the best resource we can be, the knowledge resource for our industry? And really, doing that strategic planning around that. It's been really cool, full of great people. I think right now is one of the most exciting times to be a part of GEAPS in a long time. We're certainly growing. We're changing the way we do things, right? We've never done a podcast before. I think we're really figuring out how we can be that resource for this industry and being on that board, the governing board that's doing the planning and kind of communicating those ideas. It's been really cool. So looking forward to another year of that, and we'll see. It's an exciting time to be at GEAPS, like I said.
Wonderful. And, greatest compliment I can give to you and other members of the International Board is this: you're all very curious individuals. And so that then goes into asking questions, asking the right questions, having discussions, and to have people in both the associate level and those in operations and in facilities. It's just a neat set of perspectives to bring. All right.
Absolutely.
To support strategy, of course. All right. Now, Casey, if you don't mind, could you just give a brief description about your current role with Gavilon Green and about the organization?
Yeah, so I've been with Gavilon for a little over 10 years now. I started on the operations side here in Fort Worth, Texas, and Wichita Falls. Made the switch to the safety team in 2017. It's been an awesome journey. So I currently office out of Fort Worth, Texas, but I cover what you call our Southwest region. So, kind of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico. A part of an awesome team. We'll talk about some of the culture changes we've made around safety, but it's been really cool. I never really had the intention of getting into safety when I got into the industry, and just kind of fell into it. And it's been an incredible journey and something that I wake up excited about every day. So.
Well, it's so good to hear that. It's great to have you on the International Board and great to have you in the show because you play such a critical role for your organization. I mean, there's just a multitude of potential hazards when working in or near a grain elevator and grain facilities. Safety, of course, is top of mind. And I know you try to take advantage of every opportunity to connect with your Lone Star GEAPS chapter members, other GEAPS members, and professionals in the grain industry, of course, along with your colleagues. But from those conversations, I know you're hearing and seeing gaining support for a new vision for safety. There appears to be a safety movement taking place within organizations. It's a new vision for safety. So that means there's a change for some of these organizations that are making a shift at how they look at safety. Where were they, right? Because there's a change. So where were they? And then what does the ideal, new direction they are headed in look like? I mean, what's the shift we're seeing, big picture wise?
We'll be back after a quick break.
GEAPS Training and Education Program is proud to release Introduction to Grain Operations. This new course is a multimedia version of what was known as GEAPS 500 with dynamic graphics, video examples, photographs, multidimensional illustrations, animations, and interactive exercises. This course is sure to prepare your teams for the work you need them to do. This is a great industry primer at a great price. For a limited time, GEAPS members may purchase the course for just $195. Non-members still save and pay just $295. For more information, visit GEAPS.com.
Yeah, I'd certainly say, it's certainly new in our industry, or I wouldn't even say new. I think a lot of organizations have been kind of on the safety 2.0, path for a while, but it's it's something that's been around for a while. There's been people that, great literature around it. I bring up Tom Kraus or Sidney Decker or Todd Conklin have definitely been preaching some of the principles of this for a long time. I've really seen it hit our industry here in the last probably 10 years, but really take hold. I know my personal kind of journey in safety in my organization is something we have been doing for roughly 5 years. And really seeing some great changes. So, as far as this new vision or, safety 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, I think there's a couple big pillars within it that you have to focus in on. And, the traditional sense of safety that we've seen in really all industries at some point is that safety success is the absence of injuries, right? So we were always so focused on total incident rates, right? The number of OSHA recordables, lagging indicators, as we would call them. So we're constantly just reacting to incidents, right? And the other big part of that is continuing to try to just tell people to be safer and thinking that the humans were the biggest factor in these incidents, right? This new approach is, a couple big things for me that I've taken away from it is, one, it has to start with incidents that involve life-altering injuries or fatalities, or the potential for life-altering injuries or fatalities. So when I'm focusing in on those, listen, we all care about OSHA recordables, right? We don't want OSHA recordables. We don't want any injuries at all. But my main goal as a safety manager, and everyone's main goal that should come to work for your organization every day, whether it's your location leadership, your hourly employees, is that we get home, right? The way we showed up. I might have a guy sprain his back, whatever it may be, but my main focus is that individual goes home to his family, and that should be everyone's focus. So focusing in on these serious injuries or fatality potential incidents, right? That starts with increased reporting. We have to have employees reporting incidents, whether that's actual incidents, near misses. And then after that reporting is we have to have them answer honestly about what happened, whether they made a mistake or not. I need to know exactly what happened. We need to know exactly what happened so that we can do the best we can do to prevent it in the future, right? So you have to create that culture where they trust you, that you're not digging into an incident because you want to put blame on someone or reprimand someone. You want to know the details of that incident because you want to make sure this doesn't happen again. So, selling that and being honest and open about incidents is certainly the big one. The focus on serious injury and fatality, we kind of categorize our incidents. And if it has serious injury or fatality potential, I'm going to spend a little more time on that, right? We're going to dig out, okay, what were the hazards? And then pulling that data in big picture, right? So I can look at all my locations and all these incidents and say, okay, this is where our biggest hazards are right now. It's rail fall or, rail operations, fall protection, objects falling from heights, whatever that may be. And I can approach it from, an EHS team level to where, what do we have to do across the board to make sure this hazard is mitigated across the board? So focusing in on those, certainly increased reporting, like I said. I said at the beginning, a lot of people base kind of the old school safety on the number of injuries, right? What's your total incident rate? Something that I believe it's Todd Conklin always says is safety is not the absence of incidents or injuries, but the presence of controls. So I can look at a ladder, for example, and say, okay, no one's fallen off that 30-foot ladder in the number of years that I've been working at this facility. Does that make that ladder safe? Not necessarily. Somebody could fall off it tomorrow. Now, if I take that ladder out and put stairs in place, now I can say I have a safer facility, right? So, just because an injury hasn't happened there doesn't mean it won't, and it doesn't mean my facility is any safer. So, and that kind of leads into the next part, right? The human performance part is something Todd Conklin focuses in on, but we have to understand that merely telling people to be safe or be safer or retraining will not work, right? We have to understand and accept that people are going to make mistakes no matter what. Everyone does it every day. Everyone's going to make a mistake. It is understanding that that people will make mistakes and you can't manage that. What you can manage is that when people make mistakes, they don't get hurt or killed. Something one of my kind of mentors told me when we first started this journey was, a great analogy is when you go to a facility and you're talking to the crew, say or instead of that location leadership telling that crew, hey, there's an alligator out in our facility and it bites, right? Stay away from it because it'll bite you. Instead of telling them that, we're going to either put that alligator in a cage or we're going to take the alligator out of the elevator, right? Then we know for 100% that alligator is not going to bite anybody. So viewing hazards as that, right? That I can't tell you that this is safe and you have to be flawless every time you're around this hazard, because I know you're not going to be flawless every day. You're going to make mistakes. But when you do now, I have a fail safe, right? I have a machine guard. I have a fall protection system that catches you. Whatever that may be, you have to engineer out of these hazards. That's a key in kind of this, what you would call new vision, is going from a make-do culture, making people be safer, trying to make people be safer, to a make-right culture, right? We have to build systems and facilities that protect our employees even if they fail. So kind of a new approach. And something that goes with that too, talk about identifying hazards, is you have to understand as an organization that the people that have the best knowledge of the hazards in your facilities are the people that are facing them every day. And that's your workforce, right? So not looking at employees as, the problem makers, but the problem solvers, right? So it's important when you have these incidents, when you have incidents, letting those employees that were involved in that incident, letting them be a part of that solution. How do you think we can best protect you going forward? But also not just being reactive to incidents, but being proactive in something you should absolutely involve your hourly crew in, is let's go out and identify hazards before they become a near miss or an incident, right? What's in this facility today that can get you seriously hurt? And then we can take that and we always use the hierarchy of controls, right? When we're talking about corrective actions, it's, your PPE is at the bottom, your administrative controls, which would be your confined space permits or your hot work permits. Those are good and they can be good reminders, right? Permits are great. They make sure we're checking the boxes and preparing for whatever hazard we're facing, but you're still relying on humans there, right? So at some point, we're going to make some mistakes, right? Maybe somebody didn't identify a hazard in a grain bin before they got in, or whatever that may be. Once you get above those, you start talking about engineering, substitution, and elimination. And those are what we want to target when we're talking about corrective actions. That is taking the human out of the corrective action. So if I can engineer something, if I can replace a ladder with stairs, if I can put a machine guard, around an open belt so nobody can fall on it, then you talk about substitution, right? What's a safer alternative than this? And then elimination, right? So, one example I love using with elimination, and it sounds crazy in our industry, but I think we have a lot of people working towards this, is the biggest, killer in our industry year after year is usually grain bin entries or confined space entries. I think it sounds crazy, but we have to start thinking about the only way going forward that we can absolutely promise that no one is ever hurt or killed in a grain bin again is keeping them out of grain bins, right? And like I said, that sounds crazy, but there are alternatives. It's something we push for, and, a location thinking outside the box and going, hey, let's rent an industrial air compressor and build a couple, long pokers and try to clean the bottom of this bin out without ever getting in. That's how we have to start thinking. Certainly there's technology out there. At the exchange this year, we had the grain weevil from the guys at Purdue. That's actually a robot that goes in and cleans bins. But that's how we got to think going forward, facing our biggest hazards in the industry, is we got to figure out just a way to eliminate them completely. So
that's a great big picture.
Did I sum that new vision up? That get a little lengthy, but there's a lot to it. But,
Oh, absolutely. It seems like, to sum it up, it's a shift in frame of mind. You use the word trust as well. And actually, so that's a good overview, big picture. I would love for you to kind of expand upon a little bit more, dig deeper in terms of, how does this impact someone in your position? How does this impact the role of safety managers? And how does this impact all members of the organization? You touched on a little bit more, but in that, I would also at some point talk about, trust with this sort of safety 2.0. How does that play an impact overall with the organization and just with interpersonal relationships with your colleagues?
There certainly has to be trust, from top to bottom in any organization. But, when it comes to safety, I brought up when employees, whatever level you're at, whether it's hourly or location supervisor, safety team, whatever that may be, when you're raised or kind of brought up in a safety culture where it's the norm that, if an accident happens, somebody's probably getting fired, or, you're getting rode up, or you're raised where every time an accident happens, somebody shows up and they're just simply trying to put blame on someone. It's hard to get out of that. It is hard to get away from that frame of mind that every time someone gets hurt or we have a near miss, that somebody's out to get me, right? So you have to, as a safety manager in particular, you have to make employees trust you, that that's not what you're doing, that you simply care about them, right? One of the things, I don't know who I heard this quote from years ago. I said, I'm a quote guy, right? But it's no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So I don't want to show up to a facility and just tell them to be safer and tell them how to be safer. It's, showing up and going, hey, I'm here because, maybe you had an incident, or maybe I'm just doing a location site visit, but getting to know the individuals that work there and getting to know what they do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a payloader operator or somebody that just does housekeeping at a grain elevator, knowing and understanding what they do on a day-to-day basis and building that trust with them, that if there's a hazard that you're facing every day, tell me about it. Tell your supervisor about it, and let's get it fixed the best way we can. And I want you to be a part of that solution, because I do safety because I actually care about you. And everyone cares about you, right? In an organization, getting a whole team to care about each other and, making safety personal, right? We do this stuff because we want you to go home to your family. We don't do it because of, we have regulations and policies, which is great, and it helps us get to some of these goals. But when it comes down to it, the biggest reason we have safety or do safety every day is because we care about the individuals that work for us. The people that work for your organization are your greatest asset. And if you can't show that you care about them, nothing else is going to matter. You're not going to run a successful business without people that feel safe and truly care that their organization cares about them. So
I thoroughly enjoyed that. Another great quote, by the way. Yeah, it kind of put people first, in terms of that, connection, to building trust. It takes time. And there's processes, to support and generate that trust, but to generate complete alignment for this new vision of safety and continuous safety improvement requires a sound thought process. Based on your experience, how does a safety manager best persuade and influence this shift in thinking? Because there are a lot of people out there right now who might thinking, I would like to implement some of these things. Perhaps there might be some roadblocks. How does a safety leader, persuade and influence a shift in thinking? What are some of the steps that you think are needed to implement this new vision of safety?
I mean, there's certainly great examples out there. Like I said, it's certainly not a new vision in the workforce across the board. Maybe in our industry, it's fairly new, but, I always like to use the auto industry as a great one that people, are exposed to every day when we're driving our cars. And Todd Conklin uses this one a lot, but, at some point in the auto industry, they said, people will get in wrecks, right? People are going to make mistakes. How do we start building vehicles that allow people to make mistakes? And you see that year to year, right? One of the great examples, you get in vehicles now and you have the steering assist and, automated brakes and essentially getting to cars that can drive themselves. It's something that looked into recently. You hear about a lot in Texas, or our children being left in cars, not to get too deep here, but, you hear people react. Well, how could somebody forget? How could somebody do that? That happens to good parents. That happens to good people. We have to understand that it can happen to anyone, and especially in a world that we live in full of distractions, right? Our cell phones are always on us. We have a million things going on. As long as we solely rely on people to not make that mistake, we will still hear about that terrible tragedy. So now, I think a lot of the big automakers last year signed on to a bill that guaranteed they would have rear seat detection in all their vehicles by 2025. So when you get out of that vehicle as a driver, if there's something in your back seat, it's going to beep and yell at you, just like the seat belts, right? But a perfect example of that in the auto industry in general of, not relying on people not to make mistakes. You can give them every safety driving course, whatever it may be. People are still going to get in wrecks, right? The energy industry has done it for a long time, but you can take a lot of the examples and, for as far as influencing someone on this new vision, you can take a lot of examples and say, hey, it takes a while to change this culture. You have to change it from top to bottom, certainly starting with executive leadership down to your, operations managers, EHS team. And then you slowly see that trickle down to your location leadership. And I tell a story all the time about, we're probably 4 or 5 years into this, but, when I first started in safety, sometimes you'd see those guys that have been in the industry for 30, 40 years, right? And they've done it all and they've seen it all and pretty set in their ways. And usually when I'd show up, they'd run and hide or, didn't want anything to do with me, right? And I had an instance about 6 months ago where one of my locations where, one of these old school guys that never wanted anything to do with me, he actually walked up to me and said, hey, while you're here, I want to go take a look at this hazard and talk about what we're going to do about it. And it was that day I said, okay, you're never fully there, right? You still have some out there that, may not give into it. But the fact that this individual came to me and said, hey, we got a hazard and I want to be a part of the solution and show you, seeing that trickle all the way down to the people that really are impacted by safety, is really cool. And it takes a while, and all it takes is one reaction to ruin that. Absolutely. If somebody has an incident and somebody doesn't react the way they should, then you're starting from scratch, right? So, convincing everyone top to bottom, they have to give into it. And making sure that they know how to react to situations, because all it takes is one reaction, one individual to really, like I said, start the culture over or start building the culture again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That story that you just shared there, that is proof that your culture is changing and you are moving forward. So that's awesome to hear. And Casey, how do you suggest these things are tracked and measured?
Certainly when I said this new vision, right, is not the absence of incidents, but the presence of controls. So, talking about lagging indicators, right, always just reacting to incidents. It's good to pull data out of incidents, certainly, but really taking the data from increased reporting, whether it's incidents or near misses, and identifying the biggest hazard, right? What are your biggest high risk operations? Where are you having the most incidents around high risk operations, whether it's near misses or actual incidents? Taking that data and then being proactive about it, right? So here's my list of the highest high risk operations we're facing today, right? Whether it's electrical, falls from heights, objects falling from heights, rail, confined space, whatever those are, right? Taking those and then digging a little deeper, right? What specifically within these high risk operations are we exposing our employees to a hazard in? So, pulling that and then letting everyone be a part of it, right? Hearing from your teams that are out there facing the hazards every day, and then ultimately shooting for the hierarchy of controls, right? Those effective controls. How are we mitigating it? Are we eliminating it? Are we substituting it? Are we engineering out of it? So the data that you can pull from incidents is so useful in moving forward and being proactive about preventing further incidents. And of course, putting those controls in place, right? The presence of control. So if I can go back and say, I put 300 engineered controls around high risk hazards at our facilities last year, then I can tell you for a fact that our organization's safer. So that's really the data you need to be pulling.
That's great. Now, on a different but also very positive note, joining or creating a GEAPS chapter can be a vehicle for continuing this conversation and generating many more important discussions to best support you in this industry. Casey, I know you're an active member of the GEAPS Lone Star chapter. To provide some greater context for listeners who may be listening and interested in joining a GEAPS chapter, or want to see how they can, grow and connect even further with their GEAPS chapter that they're in. Can you speak on, just real briefly, what value does it bring to you and other chapter members?
So I'm new to this. So we didn't have a chapter in Fort Worth for a long time, and we started the Lone Star chapter last year. So we're a brand new chapter. I think we're 70 members strong already, but I think the heart and soul of GEAPS is really the chapters, the local chapters, and we have some real big ones out there, some smaller ones, but being able to meet, whether it's 2 or 3 times a year, with the people that are really familiar with the specific area, that we work in our specific industry, right? Fort Worth's a big wheat producer, and we have a lot of flour mills, but also the networking, right? The same as the exchange. But I get to network with a lot of people that I've worked with for years, whether they're associate or regular members. But, the same as being a part of GEAPS as a whole is, we get to do a lot of really cool things together too. We get to go on facility tours. We get to do some volunteer opportunities. We get to go play golf together. Certainly we get to drink beer together sometimes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but it's a blast. The chapter membership certainly is, like I said, you get a lot more time with your fellow GEAPS members than just at the exchange or whatever it may be. And you can really do what you want with a chapter, and GEAPS supports it, from the staff level. And it's a really neat opportunity. So I'd encourage anybody, if you're not involved with your chapter, the networking is great. The events are great. And just like I said, specifically in safety, I get to put my mind together with a lot of other great minds in the industry and take that back to my organization, right, as a benefit. So
that's great.
Certainly been a fun time.
We are actually going to have some upcoming episodes, upcoming shows dedicated to GEAPS chapters and some of the great work that they're doing. All right. I want to thank you, Casey, for connecting with our listeners. Safety is such an important topic, of course. I'm glad we had the opportunity to discuss this new vision for safety. We can't discuss safety enough. So lots of episodes about that. Thank you for serving as a leader in the grain elevator and processing industry. And it's extra special to have you on the show, given your current leadership experience with the GEAPS International Board. Now, before we conclude, I'd like to start a sentence, and I'd like for you to conclude the sentence. Being part of the GEAPS family means...
Put me on the spot here. I'd say being part of the GEAPS family means being a part of something bigger than yourself, certainly even bigger than your organization, right? And being a part of that is certainly the best way you can serve and promote our industry as a whole, an industry that we're certainly all passionate about. And being a part of GEAPS really helps drive that. So great opportunity.
Well, Casey, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Jim.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We appreciate Casey being open to sharing his insights on transforming safety culture. He certainly is heavy into professional development, as you heard, and he knows it's important to continue to have conversations about the evolution of safety culture. Are you having some of these same discussions in your organization? I hope everybody can use this show as a vehicle to continue the discussion in your chapter meetings and in your facilities. I encourage you to share this episode with others. It's so easy to do so this day and age. Remember what I said in the first episode, you are now part of a larger global community. You can find this show, Whole Grain, very easily on the GEAPS website. You can find it in podcast directories and apps. Let me know how you want to continue the discussion on safety culture. What other topics would you like to listen to and be part of to support the greater grain handling and processing industry? And what do you think about the show so far? Email me at james@geaps.com. I'd love to hear from you. I know GEAPS is fortunate to have an incredible group of associate members. They are the vendors and suppliers that support our industry. Maybe you're interested in coming on the show. Do you have some products and services that you think are critical for the industry? What are your recommendations for best practices? Maybe you have a case study that you'd be willing to share. What kinds of problems are you able to solve? Perhaps you are interested in bringing your client or customer partner on the show with you and discuss together the process you've worked on to think, to transform, to design, build, implement. Let us know. We'd like to support you. The Whole Grain Show is a new channel to best support the industry. If you are not currently a member and are considering GEAPS membership, I strongly recommend visiting jeeps.com/membership. We offer individual membership and facility and company membership. And for a broad look on all we have to offer to best serve you, visit jeeps.com. That's GEAPS.com. If you found this show valuable, please tell a friend. Let your colleagues know about the show. Have yourself a great day, and thanks for listening to Whole Grain.